Welcome back to Dynasty Football Maniacs. Today we're just going to talk about just general discussion on fantasy football and some news, and then cover some cut, trade, and keeps. So what do you got for me, Austin?
Okay, so I'm gonna ask I'm gonna ask you. There's a couple of groups, position groups that is gonna be a big impact in fantasy, but I'm not too sure who the number ones are gonna be. And I was gonna bring this up to discussion to see what you thought. Oh, but so the first group that I thought would be really important to try to figure out who the number one would be is the wide receiving group for the Green Bay Packers. I was curious on your take on who you thought was going to prevail to be the number one, because in my opinion, I'm I'm honestly leaning toward Jaden Reed by the way of all the positive stuff that I've been seeing, and also because I would say Christian Watson, but he's been having a hamstring problem for the last, especially last year. And he actually, this offseason, he actually went to the doctors to actually try to figure out why he's having them hamstrings problems, which, you can work on that. I believe you can work on that. I mean, I guess, but right now, I really think is Jaden Reed, but I really would love to hear your opinion on who you think is going to be prevail as the number one wide receiver in that group this year.
So in that group is interesting. Jaden Reed, yes, he was the top scorer last year. Um, he was able to connect better with Jordan Love than the others. And I'll be honest, I haven't watched much of their OTAs to see where they're at, but
All right.
just him coming off the top of the season as one of the better receivers for him was good. There was hints of Christian Watson when he wasn't injured and when he did play that he could be a good receiver, and he was decent. But I think the best one that came out that snuck up on me was Romeo Dobbs. Now, if he doesn't drop the ball as much as he did last year, because a lot of the drops that he did wasn't Jordan Love, it was him as a receiver. If he can
Right.
control that and get better at that, and that's something they'll probably work on, it's teachable.
Right.
He could really surpass Jaden Reed because target wise, he had more targets than Jaden Reed. So Jordan Love is naturally throwing more to Roman Dobbs, but not by much, just slightly. And if Roman Dobbs would just hold them balls a little bit better, he would probably pass the numbers that Jaden Reed had. But in all reality, I would have to say the number one will probably be again Jaden Reed. And I would think instead of Christian Watson coming in number two, I believe it will be Romeo Dobbs if they improve. If they don't, you know how that goes. Sometimes they don't improve and you never see nothing out of them. You
Right.
got some rookies behind them that are pretty decent. Wicks, he's not bad. And I'm not going to butcher his first name, but he's a pretty decent wide receiver himself, and he did pretty well last year his rookie season. So we could see a little bit more out of him too. So it just really depends on what they line up as their three wide receivers, which is currently Jaden Reed, Christian Watson, and Romeo Dobbs. So yeah, I'm kind of with you on that right now.
Okay. Okay. I I like what you're saying. Um, I really do think though that if not Christian Kirk, but if Christian Watson can get that um hamstring situation done, because there was a couple of games when all of the receivers were healthy and stuff. He was actually getting most of the target shares, but the hamstring has just been bothering him. If he can get that figured out, I think he probably would be the number one. But right now, I really do believe Jaden Reed would be it. But also, what you said could also happen. So now, here's I'm gonna go ahead and throw this keep trade cut at you since we're talking about this to make it interesting.
All right.
Out keep trade cut. Christian Watson, Romeo Dobbs, or Jaden Reed.
I'll be honest, I'll cut Christian Watson.
Oh, okay.
And I would trade Jaden Reed. and I would roll the dice on Romeo Dobbs.
Okay, so mine was a little different. I was gonna trade Christian Watson because in ADP he's drafted a little bit higher than both Romeo Dobbs and Jaden Reed, so he would have a little bit more value. So I would trade him away, but I honestly would keep. I would honestly keep Jaden Reed and then cut Romeo Dobbs,
Uh,
but I do like it how you throwed it out there too. So I think it's interesting.
yeah.
But I do, if you're ready to move on to another group that I would really love to talk about,
All
and
right.
I really would, and you love this team. This is like your second team. I'm calling this your second team,
All
whether
right.
you like it or not, because you have been falling in love with them this whole off season. So I want to talk about your second love team, and that's the wide receiving room for the Houston Texans.
Yes. Now I could
I
say,
want I
yeah,
I want
that's
to know who you think is the wide receiver one for that group, and I'm gonna let you have the floor before I throw my opinions out. So go ahead.
all right. They brought in Stephon Diggs, and he is a number one wide receiver, hands down. He does have, I think, a what is that personality I want to say without being too harsh?
Prima Donna.
Me. Yeah, that too. Me personality. Um, he doesn't get the me. He gets upset. He throws a tantrum, but he still receives and he does good. But I think some of that's held him back from being one of the top receivers. I think it's hampered his career in a way. But taking nothing away from him, he's an excellent wide receiver and still a wide receiver one. But Nico Collins came out last year and did well. And I honestly think we're going to see that trend even grow. I think there was a connection between him and CJ Stroud. I think as long as he's still on that wide receiver core and he's out there in the first three lineups, he's going to get just as much targets as Stephon Diggs. I just feel like when it comes down to it, just the connection. So for me, I would still ride everything on Nico Collins. Now that kind of sets Tank Dell behind a little bit. Tank Dell did really well coming out his rookie season. He was connecting. But you got to think, Stephon Diggs, even though he has that me thing, when you're throwing the ball, he catches the ball. So,
He he was a target. He's been a target hog his whole career.
yeah, so I mean, the targets are going to go to him. And I nothing against Tank Dell. And I think Nico Collins is going to have a lot of competition. Um, but I still feel like Nico Collins is going to be the wide receiver one. Stephon Diggs will be wide receiver two, and Tank Dell will be wide receiver three. That's just my input.
Okay. So okay. So the way I look at it is they traded for Stephon Diggs, but when they got Stephon Diggs, they restructured his deal to basically have a 1 year rental. Then they turned around and paid Nico Collins that money for 4 years.
Yes.
And you normally when a team goes out there and pays a wide receiver who finally had a breakout year last year and they pay him that much and that many years, that just really tells me that they really believe in Nico Collins.
Yes.
And I really I see him being a number one.
I do too. I
I
mean, it's really,
I I see him being number one, but it's going to be really interesting because CJ Stroud in the interview has done came out and said he loves Tank Dell. He really loves Tank Dell,
he said it
which
last year, but he still, when it came down
now
to the offense and the line and how the plays played and the run routes and the people that could break away, at the end of the day, it was Nico Collins. I mean, Tank Dell did his fancy footwork, got his times, but there was a lot of times Tank Dell was covered up. So The bottom line is
Yeah.
yeah, I know he loves Tank Dell, but he also loves Nico Collins, and he just ain't said it that much. I mean,
Well, if
if you
Tank
go from
Dell
109 targets to Tank Dell had 75 targets, I mean that's a big difference. And then reception wise, Tank Dell only got 47 of them. On Nico Collins, he's pretty
for
much 80.
709 yards and 7.
Yeah, we're
That's pretty impressive for a rookie at least.
yeah,
And he
for a
would have had
rookie.
more though if he didn't get hurt. If he didn't get hurt, I could see that target share going way more higher than what it ended up being
But there's
because if
two
he would have
different
not got
size
hurt.
wide receivers there. Tank Dell is not as big as Nico Collins.
Yes, but another they always say that the tight end is the quarterback's favorite weapon. Well,
Yeah.
the second one is the slot receiver.
Yep.
The Especially in some quarterbacks, they love to throw to the slot receiver. And guess who's slotted in the slot receiver? Tank Dell.
Tank Dell.
So you can see him pepper it in some of those targets as well. Nico Collins and Stephon Diggs are both going to be outside. So my question really is can C can CJ Stroud fantasy wise can he produce two top 20 wide receivers? That's what I want to know. If he can produce two top 10 or a top 20 wide receivers, then it doesn't matter really. You could take a chance on any of these three. But the only thing I see probably happen is you're going to have 1 week where Nico Collins has a really good week. Then you'll have another week where Tank Dell has an explosive week. And then you'll have another week when Stephon Diggs has a good week. I I feel like we're gonna run into the territory where all of them's gonna have good weeks. You just don't know when because it's like a revolving door unless CJ Stroud can really keep at least two wide receivers, healthy with targets and healthy, in that regard. Because you also got to
Well,
think
there's an
he's got
issue with that.
he's got Dalton Schultz as well
That's what I was gonna
that
say.
that he loves to throw targets to. And don't forget, they just got Joe Mixon, who loves to catch the ball on the outfield too. So you know, it's gonna be interesting how the target share of the pie is gonna be spread out. But in the wide receiving department, I think Nico Collins is gonna be one. I think he's gonna be one. Um, if I was gonna take a bet, if I'm going through a redraft or even in Dynasty, really, I would go with Nico because they believe in him because they just gave him the money. So I believe it's Nico. Be really interested to see how CJ Stroud spreads the love to everyone.
It would be because, like you just said, he has Dalton Schultz, which he's a target hog. He gets the ball a lot. He's going to take away from that wide receiver core. Do I think he's going to get two in the top 20? It's hard to do to get two in the top 20. I mean, usually that's spread out among different teams. Um, I do believe he'll have two in the top 30. Uh, Nico finished last year, I think 18. Let me look quick. Yep, he finished 18 in rank. So I mean, Stephon Diggs finished right behind Nico at 23. So
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
man, the bottom line is it's going to be a great offense. You got Joe Mixon, you got Dalton Schultz, you got Nico Collins, Stephon Diggs, and Tank Dill all out on the field receiving or one rushing. And the funny thing is Tank Dell actually took the ball a couple times and rushed. So I think he had 11 attempts, 51 yards. So they're trying to throw that mix in there. And as time grows and he gets better at doing that, you could see something bounce off one day, and it will be talking about him like we do some of the other wide receivers we see do that, like Devo Samuel or somebody like that. But it's going to take time. He's a rookie. Um, Either way, they got a pretty good wide receiver room. A little bit loaded, I think. I think I'm counting here. Oh, good God, 10 wide receivers. So it's a big room. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
All right, you ready to switch gears?
All right,
Because before we move on, who you keeping trading cutting? Stephon Diggs, Tank Dell, or Nico Collins?
all right. I'll be honest. I'm gonna cut Tank Dell. I'm gonna use the trade capital for Stephon Diggs, and I'm gonna keep Nico Collins all day long. I would pick him over all them wide receivers without a bashing an eye.
So I have the same keep, but I would just switch mine a little different with yours because I think with Stephon Diggs, I think the only value you could really get at this point is if you're trading to a contender that kind of just needs a little push to get into theirs. But either way, I still have the same keep. I would still keep Nico Collins.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna switch it up with you, and I think this is really interesting. I think your think is going to be really interesting too. But I'm gonna switch the positions with you.
Okay.
So we're gonna go into the realms of the running back.
All right. Hold on a minute. Let me see that.
Okay, and I'm gonna go ahead and give you the team. That way you can get set up and get ready. And I would really would like to know because this is actually a real question that has really been thrown around. Who do you think is going to win the running back room this year down in Pittsburgh?
Ooh.
Because there has been a lot of debate because the Steelers did not pick up Najee Harris's 5th-year option, and Mike Tomlin then came out and said he wanted to see which running back would be a best fit for their team going forward.
So the funny thing
So
about, yeah. So let's
go
go with
ahead.
that.
Go ahead.
Funny thing
Go
about that is
ahead.
Jalen Warren and Najee Harris. Jalen's ranked 24, Najee's ranked 25. They're back to back. Their fantasy
Mhm.
point is only 1 point difference, and Jalen Warren edged that out. So that's just on the fantasy side. And
Right.
then you look at attempts. It only took 149 attempts to get that same fantasy points versus
Right.
Najee Harris 255 attempts. Now the difference is Jalen Warren's more of a target back. He can run and he can catch. Najee Harris only had 38 targets versus Jalen Warren's 74. So
Hmm.
at the end of the day, you're putting two guys together, and to me, they both equal each a nickel. So it's whoever I prefer most. I remember Najee Harris actually being pretty good at receiving the ball when he played for Alabama. So I don't understand why he has that much of an issue in the NFL, but you seen it last year. When it came throwing down the field, it just seemed like it couldn't connect with him. I don't know what the difference is, but that is something you see sometimes when it changes from college to the NFL. Jalen Warren, on the other hand, become very explosive when they brought him on that team last year. He could receive out the back end, he could run the ball down the field. I think at the end of the day, and I hate to say it because I was a really big Najee Harris fan, I think Jalen Warren's going to end up winning that. If he doesn't win it, it'll be Justin Fields. They will move Justin Fields from a quarterback to a running back because he was ranked number 7 one year.
Oh
It
my
actually
God.
happened.
Speaking of, real quick, speaking of Justin Fields, uh, they dropped the Madden 25 trailer reveal.
Uh-huh.
And the new kicking rule, right? Where they're doing it how the XFLs did.
Yeah.
Well, in the Madden 25 trailer reveal, they actually showed the kickoff and they showed receiving the ball was Justin
Justin
Fields.
Fields. Now,
And then they did a little end around and he handed it off. I thought that was crazy. So apparently in Madden 25, we're gonna be able to get a little bit more creative in the kick and return department, which is funny, but didn't mean to get off subject, but
oh no,
I
not at
thought that
all.
was hilarious. I
So
thought that was hilarious. But yeah, I agree with you. To be honest with you, I really think Jalen Warren is going to just
yeah,
he's
so
going to he's going to get into this offensive scheme with Arthur Smith, and I think he's just going to thrive in it. And I think they're just going to re-sign him to like maybe a 2-year deal.
yep.
Keep him a couple more years, but and then
Whoops.
they'll either cut Najee or they'll probably just let Najee test free agency. Jay Warren, every time they had the ball last year, he just looked more explosive.
Yeah.
He just looked more explosive. He's actually catching the ball and getting down the field. So the guy to take over that spot.
Yeah, I believe the same thing. So yeah, that I'm with you on that one because Cordell Patterson, I don't see him doing it. And Edwards, I don't see him doing it. And Jonathan Ward, I don't see him doing it. And LaMichael Purian, I don't see him doing it. So
All right. So I'm not going to hit you with a keep trade cut guideline since there's only two that time. But there is I thought this group was interesting too. It's the same position as running back. But the team, we're going mile high on this team. And we're gonna go to we should discuss the running back room for the Denver Broncos
ooh, that's a good one.
because so I was a Javante Williams truther when he first came out of college.
Uh-huh.
I I grabbed him and he looked so good. Yes, Melvin Gordon was there, but Javante Williams was just running people over. He just looked so great. But then that injury happened, which was devastating. And then last year, I know he was coming back from it, but he really did not look like himself. And with a kind of a serious injury that he had, a lot of teams, a lot of actually team doctors that I've heard people talk about and I've read up on some, they're saying that that type of injury could take, it could take 2 years, maybe more. So to get, you know, picked up. But, they also had some IJP round last year, but they also, they drafted Estime too, in the draft. They also have Jalen McLaughlin, they had last year who had some flashes last year whenever they threw him in as well. So I'm interested to see what your opinion on this running back group is.
So with Javante Williams, yes, since his injury, he's never been the same. I don't really rely on him that much because I don't think he's really had a consistent season. McLaughlin, when he stepped in a few times, yes, he showed a spark, but I don't think it was enough. And Pirine, he also showed a spark when he played. I think it's an open running back room. I think these two rookies they brought in, one was undrafted, one was drafted. They have an opportunity uh, to take the running back room. So I think the running back room is open in that whole outfit. And at the end of the day, it's whoever runs the ball, whoever gets there is going to get the job. And I know coaches tend to brag on certain individuals, but that's just what they do for PR. And the back room in the OTAs, we'll see when spring training comes who's really getting the ball and who's not, who's practicing with team one and who's not. And then on starting day, you're gonna see it. Um, I just believe it's an open room. I would not. The only one I would draft on that team right now Esteban and put him on my taxi squad to see how he did. The rookie from Notre Dame. I wouldn't touch anybody else if I could avoid them.
Even if Javante was like I can't remember his ATP, but let's just for giggles and stuff. Let's say he was like, late 11th, 12th round because nobody really believes in him. And you already have established, running backs that you picked in the beginning. And you have, you're basically at this point picking just bench spots to just, throw people and have hope. Would you take a chance on him then if he was late in that later round?
If he was in the later rounds and it fell to me, and say I only had I needed like a backup for one of my running backs, I would probably throw him there and hope that the day I needed to use him, he was healthy and he was playing.
Okay.
But that'd be about, so yeah, he'd be like my running back 2 or 3, and it'll be just there to play on a bye week. I wouldn't be swapping him out with anybody unless for some reason he goes back to his original rookie year and just starts blowing up and having that extraordinary year. Then it'd be a whole different situation. But I honestly think he's past that time, and I don't see that coming. I think
Okay.
I think we would have seen more of it already if he was.
I really I really hope Javante comes back, but at the same time, I really believe Sean Payton likes Estimate because, well, I mean, Sean Payton drafted them in the draft. And
Yeah,
Sean Payton isn't going to grab a running back, Sean Payton's always had a running back committee. He's always had one in New Orleans whenever they had Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram. So
right.
he's always had a committee. So he's willing to draft a running back to see how they do and if he have the 1-2 punch. So I really think Estimate can really actually have a chance just to take this over if Javante cannot get back to how he was.
But looking just at the rankings itself, most people consider him a tier 5. He's right behind Najee Harris,
Hmm.
Javante Williams. Thing is his fantasy points don't show it. So like if you did it like by points, he wouldn't be up there. So I mean, that's the thing about ADP. ADP is not always about the statistics. It is to a point, but it is also about people's choices. So if you go back to statistics, he would drop a little bit.
I I was gonna say I think the reason why his ADP is where it's at, I think a lot of people are just hoping. I think they're hoping that he's gonna get back to where he was because I don't see them just drafting him just to be like, well, he's gonna be a serviceable back, so I'll just go ahead and grab him. No, I at that price, at that high, no, I'll just get somebody else instead. I think that's the reason why I think a lot of people are just banking on hope. The reason why his ADP is that high.
Yeah. So I mean, if you do fantasy points just alone, the largest to smallest, he drops like down the list to, well, no, well, let's see how far he drops. Tell you in just a second. I mean, he drops a little bit. He drops from 26 to 29. I guess it ain't that bad.
No, no, but
But you know,
that's on the fringe of running back two numbers though.
yeah, you know who's right behind him in scoring after that?
Who's that?
I'll give you one guess.
Okay.
Guess. Who do you think it is?
Well, you got to give me at least one hint.
Oh, I love this guy to death.
Ezekiel Elliott?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh my god. Okay.
There's like his
But
total score.
Zeke probably got there because of them touchdowns though.
There's only 100 yards difference between the two. He actually, Zeke has more receiving yards than he does. They equal on
Okay. Well,
touchdowns because he didn't score as many
okay.
touchdowns with the
So it's the receiving game then.
his receiving game is 100 yards more than Javante Williams. His rushing yards is 100 less than Javante Williams. Javonte Williams carried the ball more. Zeke only carried it 184 times. Zeke had 65 receptions, 51 which he received, 313 yards. They each have 5 touchdowns. So they're just like 2 or 3 points away from each other.
So what you're saying is you would pick Ezekiel Elliott over Javonte Williams.
That is exactly where I'm going with that.
How did I not figure that out?
Well, I'm just throwing the statistics out there. Now I'm not going by people's opinions.
Yeah, no, you're going by your opinion.
Yeah, my opinion is Zeke's great. Everybody else is secondary, except for
Yeah.
Christian McCaffrey. He's a
Oh,
god.
okay. Okay,
Now I
so
might have offended someone because I said that.
I know you definitely offended somebody.
I know.
All right. So before I give out this other one, do you have a group that you would like to talk about? Because I have another one in mind.
I got an
If
interesting.
okay, go ahead.
And this is off the top of my head, but I was sitting here thinking about it today, and I thought to myself, who is going to be running back one at Tennessee? Because the great
Oh,
Derrick Henry left, and you bring in a guy that I thought was mediocre, and that's Tony Pollard. And then you got Ty Spears, Dylan Johnson, Julius Chestnut, which is a undrafted rookie, and then Hassan Haskins. So you have 3 rookies in the room. Dylan Johnson's a rookie. Ty Spears only second year. Pollard's your senior guy. And yes, Pollard had 1,000 yards last year, but he just went over it by it's 1,000 yards. I'll just leave it at that. I mean,
so do you want the floor first, or
I'm gonna
do
let
you
you
want me
tell
to grab
me.
the floor first? Okay. So this one I find really interesting because they paid Tony Pollard like, hey, we believe in you. We want you to come in. But at the same time, when you watched Tajay Spears, they were actually giving Tajay Spears a pretty good percentage of touches, even with Derrick Henry being there.
Mm-hmm.
And that is crazy. That is really crazy for somebody to be with having Derrick Henry in there and they gave him a percentage that big. That's that's just wild to me. But honestly, the way I see it, I really believe that the way it sounds by what the coaches are saying, and you don't really want to lean in too heavy on the coaches because they can be very misleading. But at the same time, you just can't really ignore it. And honestly, it kind of sounds like they want to try to do a committee thing. Now, I don't really see the committee thing working because, in my honest opinion, I really think Tajay Spears is actually just going to cement himself to being the number one guy. And honestly, it all comes back to last year watching him play with Derrick Henry. And because he literally finished as the number 34 running back in fantasy, being the backup to Derrick Henry. I don't know any other backup to Derrick Henry that was able to do that.
That is true. I give you that.
Because okay, I'll I'll break this down pretty quickly because the percentage of snaps is insane to be even with Derrick Henry because the lowest percentage of snaps he had his average is around 40% on the floor end with Derrick Henry. But he literally averaged around 60% of snaps last year with Derrick Henry. 60%. That to me, that to me is just mind-boggling because when you think of Derrick Henry, I know he's getting older, but at the same time, they still gave Derrick Henry significant amount of touches. But Derrick Henry, it's Derrick Henry because when he played last year, Derrick Henry actually averaged around 57, 58 percentage of snaps. So, in all honesty, I really do believe that, yeah, they're probably going to talk their game with, oh, we paid Tony Pollard to be, or kind of running back committee and stuff. But I really do believe Tajay Spears is going to take over this backfield. That's what I believe. I want to now. The floor is yours to speak your case.
All right. So looking at between Derrick Henry and Tajay Spears, they did kind of like there was a higher percentage than most teams, not maybe 60. It was close to more 30% of him getting the ball running it, just on the run part, not the receiving part. You put in the receiving equation, it then kind of changes the percentage a little bit, which you start getting closer to 60. Um, so Derrick Henry had 280 attempts. Tajay had 100. When it came to receiving, they threw the ball more to Tajay than they did Derrick. Derrick only got it 36 times. Tajay got targeted 70 times. Both Tajay did not do much with his 100 touches. I mean, he only got, 456 yards is not bad, but I mean, to the 280, Derrick Henry was over 1,167. Derrick Henry only received the ball 28 times and got 214 yards. Tajay Spear 52 times and got 385. Touchdowns wise, Derrick Henry surpassed Tajay Spears because he's a bigger guy. He was doing the goal line stuff. He was getting the balls in there. So he had over 12 touchdowns. Tajay got his touchdowns between receiving and rushing. He got 2 in rushing and 1 in receiving. This is my take on Tony Pollard and Tajay. They're the same. None of them are big backs. None of them are down the line backs. They're runners. They're explosive runners. That's why when Tony played with Zeke, it worked out perfect because Tony could run the ball in the open field, where Zeke was done aged, but he still had that power. He could push it in the end zone. I don't think neither one of them had that power to push it in the end zone. I think Tennessee will have to resort to someone else being the end zone guy because you even seen it last year with Tony with Dallas. He couldn't get it when he was in the red zone. If it was outside the red zone, you could pretty much, if he broke free, he's getting a touchdown. But if he was on the red zone area, he wasn't that big back pushing that. Tajay Spears was never that big back. That hence you seen the bigger thing. So for Tennessee to go out there and get 2 backs to have the same, to me, I think the same kind of criteria. I'll be interested to see how that works. I mean, and maybe one of the rookies is their third down back. I mean, maybe one of the rookies is the end zone guy. I've not really looked at them 3 rookies to see what they can do. None of them had hit my list. I don't think Dylan Johnson, Julius Chestnut, and Hazain Haskins. I'll have to look them up. They just don't trigger anything right now. So I don't understand. I don't
Don't waste
understand
your
the
time.
reasoning. I'm not going to waste my time. I
Don't
just don't
waste your
understand.
time.
Yeah, I don't understand my reasoning. Their reasoning behind that whole pick. I mean, I really don't. I mean, I'm lost for words on it, but it's going to be interesting. You're going to have 2 running backs. They're going to share the targets. At the end of the day, I think Tony will have the edge over Tajay. Tony's not that bad of a runner. I just don't think he's that great of a runner. That's just my opinion.
Well, well, he didn't really have. He had over 1,000 yards, but he was also coming off an injury. which that's fine. But before then, he was getting over 5 yards per carry a pop, which is pretty impressive. Because
Yeah.
that's usually what you want a running back to have for yards per carry. You don't want a running back to have 3.9 or anything lower than 3.9 because then you're just really just wasting touches. But I think it's going to be a battle. But I think Tony, the only way he could get it to solidify it being number one is if he comes back and he come back and be's great like he was when Zeke was there, and even whenever they were using less of Zeke, he still did great. So he would
Mm.
have to be back from health. He had to be healthy, like 100% healthy that he used to be. Because I believe Tajay really has a chance of taking it, just because even with 100 attempts and rushing, he had still 4.53 yards per carry out of 100 touches, and that's really good for just only
Yeah.
100 attempts. And then he also had 70 targets
Mm.
in the receiving game.
Yep.
Man, he had 7.4 yards per catch. I I mean, I like the youth there, so I like going with the Tajay Spears.
And,
That's just me.
yeah. So let's just let me throw something out, and this
Okay.
play. Let me do a cut and trade keep with you, and
Okay.
this is not the whole entire running back. We're going to
Okay.
grab someone from another team, but
All
if
right.
you had a choice,
Lay it on me.
I'm not. We're not going to mention the king because there's no point to bring Derek in this conversation because we know what the end result will be. That so I'm going to give you. I'm going to go to the Baltimore room and
Okay.
what's left in the Baltimore room, and I'm going to take the second best running back out of that room and add it in this cut, keep, and trade. It's kind of like a secondary group. So Justin
All right.
Hill for Baltimore,
Okay.
Tajay Spears, and Tony Pollard.
Okay. 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 That that is pretty interesting. So let's see. Justice Hill last year, he had 84 attempts, 387 yards. He did have 4.61 yards per carry, which is pretty good. He also had 39 targets, 28 receiving catches. He caught the ball 28 times, had 206 yards. Okay. Honestly, to be honest with you, I would cut Justice Hill. I
Oh,
would I would trade Tony Pollard and I would keep Tajay Spears. I I am growing on Tajay Spears a lot, and
oh,
I really actually thought about trying to get a little small deal with whoever was the Tajay Spears manager, and try to get a little deal done. But I don't know, man. I mean, there's just something that just caught my eye whenever you started to see more Tajay Spears. Even with Derrick Henry there, Derrick Henry would be on the field pretty good bit, but you still saw a lot of Tajay Spears. Like name, okay, name another running back that was behind Derrick Henry that had anywhere close to relatively percentage of snaps that Tajay had last year. Because I
I couldn't
can't
name
think of
one.
another one. I
No.
can't think of another one. That's what I'm saying. So that's the reason why I really like Tajay, but that's just me.
So the funny thing is I thought the same way that you did. I would have cut Justin Hill. I would have traded Tony Pollard for the draft capital because there's a lot of suckers out there that would have just jumped on top of him. And then I would have grabbed and kept Tajay Spears on my roster because if it ain't next year, I guarantee you by the third year, he's gonna have a year. He's got his year coming. And when his year comes, everybody's gonna see it. Now, is he gonna be able to sustain that year like some of the other running backs? You never know because the way the running backs work. But I've seen running backs sit for 2 years and then on their third year, just out of the blue, just blow up and you don't even expect it. He's kind of already shown that explosion. So once they start giving him the touches, I believe we'll see more. So even though he's not a big back, I mean, he gets the ball down the field. That's what matters. He at the end of the day, that's what you want to do. So
Okay. So I gotta keep Trey cut that I would like to throw at you.
all right.
And it's gonna be Tajay Spears, Jalen Warden, or Gus Edwards for the Chargers.
Oh. Ooh.
Since they're all kind of close to the same tier, maybe a little here and there, I figured I would want to see about getting your input because I have an interesting one, but I want to hear your answer first.
All right, let me get this right. You're saying Gus Edwards,
Mm-hmm.
Tajay Spears,
Uh-huh.
and then the other one was
Jalen Warden.
from Pittsburgh.
Yep.
So out of the running backs, the highest ranked one is Jalen Warren. Um, Most points, close to 200. Okay, let me think this out because I really do like Tajay Spears, and he's
Mm.
on that risk of topping. The bottom line is this: Tajay and Gus, same level. I believe I could get more draft capital off of Tajay than I could Gus. I would cut Gus. And because of what I seen last year and what I feel like Pittsburgh's going to do moving forward with just the way everything's lining out, I believe their running back one is going to be Jalen Warren. So I would keep him. So
Okay.
I would keep Jalen Warren. I would get rid of Tajay Spears and I would cut Gus Edwards.
Yeah. Well, my cut is the same as yours,
Okay.
but I would have to switch around the keep and
I
the
figured
trade.
you, yeah, I figured you were more on Tajay.
I, dude, I never really harp on a guy that I like much because it takes a lot for me to just, really harp and believe on a guy. But there, there's just something about Tajay. I don't know what it is, but
Kind of
I
like,
have, I have hopes. I have high hopes, and he has a high hope opportunity too. So that's what I'm clinging on to is the hope. And his competition is Tony Pollard. So Tony Pollard is just, one hip tackle away and Tajay's off running. So I really like him. I just do.
all right, I'll give you that. Oh, that's kind of like my liking of Zeke Elliott because if you'd have threw him in the class, I'd have probably kept him and cut everybody else.
I know that's the reason why I left him out of it. So
Oh,
there is so if you have another room, there is a position we haven't talked yet.
all right. What's that?
And it's one of the most important positions in football, in my opinion. I'm pretty sure you'd agree with this too, because they're pretty much the anchor to the team. And I want to talk about the quarterbacks. I want to talk about the quarterbacks,
All right,
and we're
let's.
and oh, you're gonna love me for bringing this up,
All right, I'm gonna
but
love you this.
I already know. I already have a feeling where you're gonna go, but I want to hear it anyways. We're
All
gonna
right,
go back. We're gonna go back to the team that we already talked about.
Pittsburgh.
You're right. I want to hear your input. I kind of have a feeling, but then again, knowing you, you could throw me a damn curveball at any moment. So let's hear this. Let's hear what you think.
Let's talk about some crazy stuff right here. We got a room. All right, Pittsburgh cleaned house. Pittsburgh got rid of Pickett, got rid of that Randolph guy. Everybody's gone. And here we got Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, and Kyle Allen. Russell Wilson last year was 29 ranking.
Hmm.
Justin Fields was 32, not too far apart. Fantasy points, 30 points difference. The difference between Russell Wilson, he won more games than Justin Fields. Justin Fields had this like curse that he couldn't get over games. As a breakout player, he's definitely athletic. He could probably play a lot of other different positions and be very successful, and they know it. They've seen it, and he's proved it. There's so much gossip out there. Who's going to be the quarterback in the room? It's got so bad that I'm not even sure. I'm like, I'm like, wow. They don't like him. They like him. They don't like him. I don't know what to read. I don't know who's the rights and who's the wrongs. I mean, I'm even reading direct things from Pittsburgh and I'm confused. So that's a good thing because if they're keeping it that confusing, you really don't know at the end of the day.
Right.
And they're both, if you put their stats side by side, percentage 66, 61. Yards, there's probably that only separation. Russell Wilson has 3,070. Justin Fields has 2,562.
Yeah, but I bet Justin Fields has more rushing yards.
They did better last year on curving his rushing yards. So he didn't hit 1,000 yards like he did the year before. He only
Okay.
had 657, which is
Oh,
double than what Russell Wilson had. So
yeah.
you would still overall yards. He was good. They both got sacked the same amount of time. So that just tells me Denver's O line is just as good as Chicago Bears O line. I mean, 45 and 44, that's too many times to be put down to the ground. Um,
Hmm.
Sounds like we're putting people to sleep out there. So, I mean, it's tough. I mean, this is my outtake. I think if they don't, this is me being biased too, I think, too. Because I mean, Russell Wilson was a good quarterback. I mean, he been to the Super Bowl. He's won a Super Bowl. He was with Seattle. I mean,
Yeah, but they also had a really good defense, though.
and they also
Like
had
a
a really
really
good
good
running
defense.
back at the time too. So,
Yep.
yeah, they had two things going for them: defense and running back. And their O line could actually protect you. I mean, you didn't see him get sacked that many times.
Hmm.
So I do blame the system he was in. Is for the stats he had was great, but he's bottom tier. He's 32. Uh 32. There's 32 teams in the NFL, right? So
Mm.
being ranked 32 ain't good. So at the end of the day, I think they're going to go ahead and sit him to save on giving away a pick four. They're going to utilize him in a different way. I believe some of the rumors coming out, you could actually see him rushing the ball. You could actually see him kick returning the ball. And you might actually see him maybe halfway through the season start quarterbacking. Because I think the way it reads is if he doesn't start as a quarterback, it doesn't say anything about him being a running back or a punt returner. I think at this point they're saving draft capital if they do that. And they could, because Russell Wilson ain't that, I hate to say it, a bad quarterback, but he is. He's 29. So, I mean, it's not any better. But at the end of the day, I don't understand why they did what they did with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. I think Russell Wilson will probably lead it. Justin Fields will end up taking it. And that's just, I think at the end of the day, that's what's going to happen. I think Russell Wilson has the chance to reclaim the job or lose the job to Justin Fields.
It wouldn't surprise me if Pittsburgh did some kind of gadget play where they had Russell Wilson and Justin Fields on the field because Justin Fields is such an athlete. It wouldn't surprise me if they came up with some kind of gadget play to where, they throw it back to Justin Fields and then he would run a little bit and then he'd just throw it back, something. It wouldn't surprise me because they talked about they literally talked about putting Justin Fields at some point as a kick returner. I saw the report and I was like, huh, interesting. And then that's the reason why that Madden reveal a trailer when they had Justin Fields returning made so much sense. I was like, why did they put him back there? And then I saw the report and I was like, oh, that's gonna be interesting.
But I heard he's a pretty
But
good wide receiver too. So that's
that's
something.
that's the reason why I say they're gonna probably try to find a way to get him on the field somehow, some way, whether it be a quarterback or possibly a receiver or hell, even a damn like doing a gadget running back play.
Yeah, just
You
imagine
know,
this. Just imagine Jalen Warren, Najee Harris, Justin Fields, your backfield. You got three running backs on the field, but one's actually technically a quarterback slash running back slash punt returner slash wide receiver. What would you do? I mean,
you could literally flank two of them out, and then Najee just kicks it back to Justin Fields, and Justin Fields can run around with it. And if he saw a receiver open, he could just bomb it down there. There's so many
Russell Wilson
possibilities
be
you
the
could
wide
do.
receiver. I mean,
I mean, the possibilities are just endless. They're going to start doing some Miami stuff before it's over
oh,
with.
I think they're going to surpass the Miami and the Kansas City's trick plays with them guys.
Oh, well, let's actually see it in action first before we go that far.
All right, we'll see it in action, but it'd be interesting. I honestly, I'll be honest with you. I'm not going to mislead anybody. I mean, I'm staying away from that entire quarterback room. In my best ability, if they're on my fantasy teams, I'm ready to trade them. They're not, thank God. Well, no, I take that back. I do have a Russell Wilson on one of my teams. Oh my God, I
Yes,
forgot. I gotta
yes,
drop
you
him, do
do.
something. I'm not gonna drop him because he's still valuable. Um, but
You could, you,
he ain't my number one quarterback, thank God. I got Derek Carr. Uh, woo, what an upgrade. I mean,
I would still take Derek Carr over Russell Wilson though.
I would take Derek Carr over Russell Wilson or Justin Fields because you
Yeah.
don't know. The unknown is there. So in fantasy, I'm telling you guys right now, these are two quarterbacks you need to stay away from. In redraft, don't gamble and draft them because at the end of the day, you're taking a big risk. And it's your risk. It's not mine, but I would not put myself at that risk. There's so many other quarterbacks to choose from to not risk that.
All right, so I got to keep trade cut
All
that
right.
involves the quarterbacks.
Okay. Give me it to
Uh,
me.
okay, so one of them is Jaden Daniels. Number two is Justin Herbert. And number three is Kirk Cousins going to Atlanta.
Ooh, you really put it in there. Did not
I
see
had
that.
this one has been marinating since you've been talking about the Russell Wilson and Justin Fields topic. So this one has been marinating, so I had to let it out.
Well, here, let me spill the beans quickly because this is such an easy, flat decision. And I want you guys to pay attention out there. If you have them players, they're your next pick, and you're picking a quarterback. And these are the three guys you have to pick one of these three. All right. You need to listen to what I'm saying because Kirk Cousin is, yes, a good quarterback. Yes, he's better than anybody. Like he made it to the NFL. Great. Kudos. Uh, I would cut him without even bashing my eyes. I would trade Justin Herbert just because of trade capital. Either one would give me capital, but I like Herbert over Cousins. Why? Because Herbert won me a championship. That's why. Uh, but I
uh,
wouldn't roll the dice because right now Herbert doesn't have a wide receiver room that I'm even wanting to look at. So I'm
well,
going to kind of back up.
Didn't Kirk Cousins make it to the playoffs more than Justin Herbert? When I'm not talking about if you would have put Kirk Cousins' whole career in there, yeah, he would have obviously been there more times because Kirk Cousins has been in the league longer. But I'm talking about the day Justin Herbert entered. Hasn't Kirk Cousins been in the playoffs more than Justin Herbert? Is that right, or am I just gaslighting everybody?
I think you're gaslighting everybody. I would have to look at that statistics. I think it's pretty close. But
I know he's made it a couple of times with. I know he's definitely made it. Kirk Cousins definitely made it at least twice
yeah.
with
So
Minnesota.
Justin Herbert scored over 100 points more in fantasy football last year, and in the year before that, he did the same. Uh, than Kirk Cousin.
Well, Kirk Cousins did get hurt
Uh,
last year. Yeah, he got hurt last year.
yeah.
Which
So
I'm not saying that Kirk Cousins would, be over Justin Herbert even if he did get hurt.
yeah, but I'm like this. I would cut Kirk Cousin because that's me, and I would trade Justin Herbert because I believe I could do a good trade with that, and I would keep Jaden Daniels because I'm gonna tell you right now, Washington's got something coming, and if you ain't ready for it, I said Houston had something coming and they had it coming. I think this is the next team. You're going to see some excitement. There's some new players, new faces, new rookies. I would pick him up, put him on my team. I would, even not knowing his stats coming this year, I think his stats are going to be extraordinary next year. He's going to be a top 10 quarterback.
Well, you do realize that your team and my team has to play him twice a year,
Oh, that's
possibly
fine.
possibly three times if they make it to the playoffs along with us.
That sucks for us, but it's okay. I mean, I grow up, I get over it. I'm not going to cry about it. I'm still,
You
let me tell
liar!
you, let me tell you,
You liar!
I'm still a big fan of my team. But with fantasy football, I have kind of let things slide and rooted for things that I shouldn't have rooted it
Mm,
for and before. It's like if it's the player I like, it's the player I root for, I'm going to
mhm,
root for him. So it's like when it's
uh-huh.
Zeke's at Dallas, I root for him. But when
No,
he's playing for
well,
the Eagles, I hope he don't show up and he calls in sick or shits his pants, one of the two. But
you say that, but you were so irate after the Chiefs game that y'all played.
we
You
don't have to
were
tell people my
definitely
personal
irate.
feel. I don't have to tell people how I felt after a game. I mean, if your team loses, you're not happy. I mean, you have your moments.
You didn't let it go as you said you did, but that's
No.
okay because I did the same thing with the 49ers, so it's understandable.
Yeah, that's another team that scares me when they hit the field. I'm like, hey, as they run out, I'm like, there's so many times I want to just like blank out the TV, cover it up, do something. I mean, I like Christian McCaffrey. I like Samuel. I'm not a big fan of the Brock Purdy guy yet. I just
Dude, they're
they're
do you
overhyping
think
him.
do you think they're gonna sign Brandon Ayuk? Are they actually gonna trade him? Because I saw the report this morning. And I think it was actually from ESPN where I saw it, where the two sides are not even close to a deal, and then but one says that they want to keep him, but they don't want to pay him for the price he is. But at the same time, one's saying that they don't want me here. So, do you think they're actually going to get a deal done, or are they just going to be like they're going to eventually just trade him?
I think in his case scenario, he's just like T. Higgins. They're both end up getting traded. It's just a matter of time of when it happens. I mean, Higgins has already made it that he's not happy with the Bengals. He
Just
wanted to
imagine,
go.
just imagine him getting traded to the Chargers.
That would be wonderful for the Chargers. The Chargers need it.
That
The
would
only
definitely
reason
help.
they see this is what don't make sense. They traded Keenan Allen. And Hardball's now looking at his wide receiver room and thinking, why did I do that? I mean,
Nah, he's crazy. He's probably looking at his wide receiver room. Like, yeah, I'm doing something great right now.
and he's built teams. I mean, let's not talk about his college years. I don't want to even think about them. But let's talk about when he was at San Francisco. He built.
You ain't gotta see him no more in college right now, so you're okay.
Yeah, he probably never going to go back to college. He did bad things. He was a cheater.
Okay. Let's okay if you say so. But tell me a football team who isn't cheating.
Bill Belichick. He has never cheated in his entire life. That is the greatest. No, I'm just kidding.
Man,
Wow.
I
The
was about
wise head flew out of my mouth quickly.
I was about to ask you what kind of good juice are you drinking tonight, because that is some off the wall stuff right there.
I think they were both charged by the NFL for cheating. Belichick was
Sounds
recording people doing the same thing that Harbaugh was doing, stealing signs, but he just used
yeah,
higher tech. He didn't use a
yeah,
notebook and a
but
guy.
I was gonna say everybody does it. It just depends
It's
on if
just,
you get caught.
yeah, you can't get caught doing it. It's like every time I go to the game recording, I don't tell them who I'm sending the tapes to.
Exactly.
That's just my paycheck.
Right. Yeah.
Next time I'm at a game, they're going to see me and they're going to focus the camera on me. Be like, it's the guy that said it. We've seen him.
Yeah, we seen it. He said it on his podcast.
But no, yeah, so that's just my opinion. I mean, I would cut Kirk Cousin. I would trade Justin Herbert, and either one would be good trades because there's a lot of biters for Kirk Cousin. And really, Kirk Cousins going to a good situation. He's going to Atlanta. Atlanta has a decent wide receiver room, tight end, and running back room that's crazy. So if you don't think, yeah, Bijan is Bijan, but Tyler Algier is saying just as good. Maybe no, athletically, he's not considered as good as Bijan, but he does have 1,000 yards in his career as a solo running back. And he only had one time to be able to do it, his rookie year. And then they brought in Bijan. I mean, that's just a killer running back room. I don't care who you say. I mean, you got them two in tandem. What are you going to do?
Fair. All right. What do you have anything else?
No, that was a pretty good conversation. I mean, yeah, we gave
All
out some
right.
top players for you guys to go after. Just keep your ears open, watch the episodes. We'll do some more discussions like this, give you guys our outtakes on who's the better player to put on your team. And we're going to get to the point where we talk about who you're sitting and who you're benching.
Oh yeah. Can't wait for that.
Yeah, we still got to rank our top 20 kickers. You remember that?
You're
I'm
right.
just kidding.
Hey, if that's what we're gonna do, that's what we're gonna do. But yeah. I also can't wait till we get to the in season stuff too, because I really would love to talk about the waiver wires and the steals that you could possibly get that's on the waiver wires each week and
Yeah.
stuff. That's gonna be really great, and you know that's gonna be our busiest times when football starts.
Yeah, right now it's just kick back, kind of throw some things out there. Um, yeah, when football starts, it's definitely going to get interesting because
Yeah,
NFL is always interesting when it starts.
you're gonna see a jump of number of shows too during the season.
Yes, we'll be doing a lot more covering. So if you like the content, please hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe. Every Wednesday we've been dropping an episode. So far we ain't missed the due date. Uh, Now, during the football season, our schedule will change slightly. And we'll update you on that schedule when it happens. We'll definitely be releasing right before the games happen. And then we'll have an outtake after the games and tell you what we think is coming up. I would keep your ears and eyes open if you're reading on the internet about T. Higgins and Ayuk, because any of them I think could unfold this year, probably prior to season start. And if any of them goes to the Chargers, that would be great because I picked up a quarterback called Justin Herbert in one of my leagues, and he needs a wide receiver. So please, me pleading to
Yeah.
you, NFL, send
I
one of them
have
wide receivers.
I have him in your Superflex league, and I definitely need somebody to. I need the Chargers to do a
Oh,
little
never
trade
mind.
for
I'll
me.
trade
So,
Justin Herbert. Don't put him on that team. Just forget about it.
hey, that's fine. I mean, more the merrier for me.
I'm just kidding. All right. Just hit the like button and subscribe. Appreciate all the subscribers. Let's drive that thing up to 2. Get that number up higher. You got anything else, Austin?
Yeah, make sure you share because sharing is caring.
Yes, sharing is caring. All right.